Magic the Gathering Marvel's Spider-Man hasn't even released yet, and it's already insanely expensive, with collector booster boxes pre-selling for nearly $1,000. Aside from the absurd price tag, I just don't even like Spider-Man. So to all my fellow haters and broke boys, this deck's for you. The entire list has a market value of just under $35, so with a little bit of imagination, you can play Spider-Man in Magic the Gathering for less than half the cost of a single collector booster. And when I say Spider-Man, I mean the deck is full of spiders and the commander is a man. I told you, we can't afford the real Wizards of the Coast Magic the Gathering Marvel Spider-Man around here. Now look, there are enough videos out there about how Disney proudly presents Wizards of the Coast's Magic the Gathering Marvel Spider-Man brought to you by Hasbro is actually the fifth horseman of the apocalypse, but I'm not interested in gatekeeping what is and isn't real Magic. What I'm interested in is building budget commander decks, and all this really means for me is that there are probably going to be a lot of cards in the set that I'll never play because they're just too expensive to fit in my decks. When it comes down to it, I like good flavor, but I love good mechanics. So if a card has fun words printed in its rules text, I can look straight through its silly name, goofy art, and unnecessary references to the neo-feudalist dystopia that I'm using this game to escape from. I just care more what a card does than I care what it looks like. So yeah, I made a $35 commander deck that actually kinda rips, and in true that's not real Magic fashion, the commander is Dalsim, Pliable Pacifist. And there is a Universes Within version of him that's even cheaper, but I just think it's funny to whine about Spider-Man and then build a Street Fighter commander in protest. At the end of the day, I don't really have a strong opinion on Universes Beyond, because I enjoy playing Magic, and I've learned not to look for reasons to hate the thing that I love. Anyway, let's get back on track. I started working on this deck over a month ago. It was the weekend of Edge of Eternity's pre-release, and just like Wizards, I completely glossed over it in favor of the Spider-Man preview event at San Diego Comic-Con. It's Comic-Con weekend. I'm in San Diego because Magic and Spider-Man are collabing, and they're showing the Spider-Man cards for the first time here. So I figured I'd come down. It's only a 2-hour drive. I brought my friend Tom with me. Tom, I've tried to get him to play Magic before. Tom loves Spider-Man, Marvel.
Yeah, big MCU Marvel guy.
So this will be an easy entry point for him. So we're gonna go play with the cards for the first time. If you've never been to San Diego Comic-Con, it is unbelievable just how hectic downtown gets.
Where is this thing?
Once we found the friendly neighborhood game store, we picked up our welcome decks and sat down so I could teach Tom how to play.
I got the blue deck. Tom, what'd you get? I got the Venom black deck.
I think the best way to teach someone new is to play towards a board state where they have the win available and let them find it on their own. They'll feel the reward of getting the win and almost always want to play more.
Yep, I'll block there and there. I'll take 3 damage, and you win. GG's.
But still, after going to combat with Doc Ock and Spider-Man 2099, I needed a palate cleanser. I needed to look at some real Magic cards. And since I was in San Diego, I decided to check out a local card shop and pick up some singles for this spiteful, spider-filled deck I've been working on. I stopped by Brute Force Games to dig through some cards. They had a massive inventory of sealed product, but I didn't see any singles on display. I was about to give up and leave when I noticed the iPads out of the corner of my eye. The singles inventory was all digital, so I started searching up cards for the list. Cards were priced really well, with some as cheap as 25 cents. They had 33 of the cards that I needed, and the total price was just $18 after tax. I submitted my order and got a little buzzer like you'd get in a food court. They pulled the cards really quickly and it went off just a few minutes later. Overall, it was a great shop with a huge selection and good prices. Definitely worth checking out if you're ever in San Diego. Once I got back to LA, I hit up another shop to fill in the gaps in the deck list. This time I'm at the Game Chest in Torrance. It's one of the only shops around that still lets you dig through big boxes of bulk. This is my favorite way to buy cards, and sometimes I'll sit here for hours just listening to music and flicking through the stacks to find cards I want. I call it the poor man's booster high. If you're addicted to ripping packs even though you know it's a waste of money, try this instead. When you find a card you're looking for, you get the same dopamine rush you get from pulling a hit, except it only costs you 25 cents and you don't end up with 14 other cards you didn't need. Now for this deck specifically, it's pretty open-ended. Dhalsim cares about creatures with reach, and the deck doesn't really care about specifics, so I'm just looking for any low-power reach creatures with obvious bonus points for being a spider. But this is another deck where you could realistically build a lot of it with people's unwanted bulk. I focus a lot on budget on this channel, and I know that the actual cost of a deck is usually higher than the market value. When you're ordering cards online, paying for shipping can really increase the cost, especially if you're buying from multiple different shops or sites. So finding a good local game store is one of the best ways to actually stick close to the market value of a deck. Over the course of 3 hours, I found 16 potential cards for the deck, plus a big stack of cards that I might want to play eventually in other decks. I even grabbed a few cards from the display case for about $1 under market value each. Again, it's one of very few card shops that I know of that actually has bulk boxes out, so if you're into dumpster diving like I am, definitely go check it out. Now, let's talk about the deck. So here it is, as always, laid out into categories, and we're going to start with the commander, Dhalsim, Pliable Pacifist. He's a 4-mana, 1/3 with reach, and Dhalsim has hexproof unless he's attacking. So basically, he has hexproof if you never attack with him. He's very, very difficult to interact with, essentially immune to spot removal, as long as you don't have to attack with him. His next ability says, whenever a creature you control with reach attacks, untap it, and it can't be blocked by creatures with greater power this combat. He basically gives all your creatures with reach vigilance and skulk, meaning they're very difficult to block, and they're always untapped so that they're available to block. And then on top of that, as if that wasn't enough, whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, draw a card. So you have all these creatures that are difficult to block, and whenever they connect with an opponent, you're drawing a card. So the game plan is really, really simple. We have a big stack of creatures with reach with low power. 1 power and reach. 1 power and reach. 1 power, 1 power, 1 power, 1 power. All a creature needs to be qualified to be in this deck is 1 power and reach. Of course, they're not all spiders. Archers is another creature type that commonly has reach, so it's mostly spiders, but then we've got a little bit of other stuff too. So the game plan is very simple. We play a lot of creatures with reach and 1 power, and whenever they attack, they can't be blocked by anything with greater power. So if your opponents don't have any 1 power creatures, all your creatures are unblockable. And now that your spiders can't be blocked, you're going to be drawing a ton of cards off of their combat damage. Now Dhalsim does say whenever 1 or more creatures deal combat damage to a player, you draw a card, so it's only going to trigger once per opponent. But if you have 3 creatures out and you're attacking 3 different opponents, you're going to be drawing 3 cards per turn. So you're drawing 3 cards every turn, your creatures are always available to block because they untap whenever they attack, your commander essentially has hexproof all the time because you never have to attack with him. It is a very difficult game plan to interact with, especially because the creatures are all expendable. Like, no one wants to spend removal on a 2-mana 1/3 spider. A 2-mana 1/2 spider with Death Touch. None of these creatures are impressive on their own. None of them are a huge threat on their own. The only piece of the deck's card draw engine that really matters is the commander, and he has hexproof. So there's no easy spot for your opponents to point their removal to disrupt it. Like I said, basically any 1 power creature with reach could make it into the deck, but the baseline you want to look for is a 3-mana 1/4. There are so many options for 3-mana 1/4 creatures with reach, and that's the perfect size for this deck. So I won't go through everything, but I'll just point out a couple of the more interesting ones. Death Touch is huge. If you can find 1 power creatures with Death Touch, they make great attackers because no one wants to block something with Death Touch. They make great blockers because no one wants to attack into something with Death Touch. So the more Death Touch you have, the better, the safer you're going to be. Twin Silk Spider is a cool one. It makes a copy of itself, essentially, so it's 2 spiders for 1. Arasta of the Endless Web is going to make spiders every time an opponent casts an instant or sorcery, so this could make you a ton of spider tokens, 1 power spider tokens with reach. Nyxborn Hydra gives you some flexibility. You could play it as a 2-mana 1/2, or you could bestow it on something, because we do have a few creatures in the deck that don't have reach, so you could give something else reach But that's basically it. I mean, look for 3 mana 1/4s with reach, look for reach and death touch, and you'll be set. Now, that's not all of our reach creatures. We do have more reach creatures that also offer ramp. So this is the ramp package of the deck. It's pretty small because, well, I'll explain. Any low power creature with reach that also provides ramp is great. Arboreal Glazer, I always say that. The dude loves trees. Anyway, 1 mana 0/3 with reach. Put another land onto the battlefield when it enters. It is a 0 power, so it won't deal combat damage until later. We'll get to that. This will help later on. Jaspera Sentinel, it's a 1 mana 1/2 with reach. It also provides ramp. Bugenhagen, 2 mana 1/3 with reach that taps for mana of any color. Intrepid Stablemaster, reach, taps for mana. Poison Dart Frog, reach, taps for mana. Tower Worker, reach, taps for mana. Clifftop Lookout, reach, and you flip cards until you hit a land when it enters. Solana Starfletcher, 1 power, reach, taps for mana. All these creatures that tap for mana do double duty in the deck because remember, when they attack, they're going to untap because of Dhalsim. So they can attack and then you can still use them for mana after combat. So these are all reach creatures that also provide a little bit of ramp. And then we have just a couple extra ramp cards in the deck. Nature's Will is great in this deck. Whenever 1 or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, tap all lands that player controls and untap all lands you control. Your creatures are, remember, essentially unblockable, so every combat you're going to be able to untap all of your lands. That is a ton of ramp. It doubles your available mana every turn. And then we also have Druid's Repository. Whenever a creature you control attacks, put a charge counter on it, remove a charge counter, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. You want to be attacking with 3 creatures minimum every turn. This will make you 3 extra mana every turn, but you can also just store it up for later for when you need it. So these are 2 cards that are going to give you a big burst of mana later in the game, and you'll be able to use it because you're going to be drawing so many cards. The rest of the ramp is just creatures with reach who help the game plan of attacking and also, coincidentally, make mana. So you're attacking and drawing cards every turn, but you're only dealing 1 damage per creature. So how does the deck actually want to close out the game? We turn it around and start dealing damage based on our toughness. And then we combine that with a bunch of cards that are going to pump our creature's toughness. And essentially, these are instant speed overruns, giving our creatures +5/+5. So we have a handful of cards here that make our creatures deal combat damage based on their toughness rather than their power. Rasad in Bashir. The newest one, Tapestry Warden. Each creature you control with toughness greater than its power assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. We have Assault Formation. It does the same thing, but it also has a built-in pump effect if you have extra mana to put into it. We have Huatli the Sun's Heart. Same thing. Baldin, Century Herdmaster. Same thing, but also has his own overrun effect built in. So whenever Baldin attacks, up to 100 target creatures each get +0/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of cards in your hand. And because this deck draws so many cards, that is almost always going to be +0/+7 or more. So we have 5 effects that flip and make our creatures deal combat damage based on toughness. And then we have 5 overrun effects that pump our creature's toughness. At instant speed, we have Tower Defense, Solidarity, and Bar the Door. And then as enchantments, we have Builder's Blessing and Castle, which only give +0/+2, but they're going to stay on the battlefield, so that's +0/+2 per turn that you attack with these on the battlefield. So you're basically going to go from attacking for 1 damage turn after turn, 1 damage, 1 damage, 1 damage, to suddenly attacking for 60 damage, because you're going to have all these creatures with big butts. You got 1/3s, 1/4s, 1/5s, and then you're giving them +0/+5. You're suddenly attacking with creatures who are, remember, still unblockable by anything with more than 1 power, but they're dealing 8, 9, 10 damage per attack. None of these pump spells are increasing our creature's power, so they're still going to have 1 power, and they still can't be blocked by anything with greater than 1 power. So that first row is the meat of the game plan. This alone could win you the game. You play a bunch of small creatures that no one wants to waste their removal on, draw a bunch of cards off of it, and then suddenly start dealing a ton of damage with those creatures. The rest of this is to support that game plan. We already have a ton of raw card advantage in the command zone. Dhalsim will be drawing us 2 or 3 cards per turn, so for the other card draw, we want to focus on filtering. These are cards that are specifically going to help us dig further into the deck to find win conditions. All of these are spells that are going to let you look at the top 4 or 5 cards of your library to look specifically for a creature or enchantment, a permanent, a permanent, a permanent, a creature or enchantment, or a permanent. They're going to let you dig for specific card types, and that'll cover basically all of your win conditions. You'll be able to dig 4 or 5 cards deeper into your deck to find Rasad or Tapestry Warden or Assault Formation or Watley or Baldin. You'll just be able to find them faster than you would just drawing more cards. So just something to keep in mind when you're building a deck. What do you want your card advantage to do for you? If you're looking for something very specific, it can be better to see 5 cards and pick one versus just blindly drawing 2 or 3. But if you do just want to draw more cards, we have a couple that'll help here. Toski, Bearer of Secrets, and Orin Frostfang both say, whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. And there is no 1 or more clause on there, so every single creature that deals damage is going to draw you a card. If you can get one of these out, you're drawing 3 cards off of Dhalsim, plus however many creatures connect. Sometimes you could be drawing 6 cards, 8 cards, 10 cards, in a single turn with these out. So hitting one of these is going to turbocharge your draw, and because they're both creatures, any of these filtering spells will be able to grab them for you. Which reminds me, Nature's Will and Druid's Repository, both being enchantments, means if we whiff and don't hit any of the win conditions, there's still a chance we could grab some of these that are going to turbocharge our ramp, or some of these that are going to turbocharge our card draw. And that's also the reason I included Builder's Blessing and Castle as enchantments. You could grab either of these off of those card filtering spells as well. The last card in this little card draw category doesn't draw you extra cards for each creature, it just draws you an extra card when it specifically connects. Legolas Greenleaf says, whenever it deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. But it also says it can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. So it has reach, it has 2 power, meaning it can't be blocked by anything with greater than 2 power, and then it specifically says it also can't be blocked by anything with power 2 or less. So that's just a nice extra draw 1 per turn when it attacks, but it also segues nicely into our next category. Because it can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less, the next category is, what do we do when our opponents have small creatures? We'll start with Sidar Kondo. In the event that your opponents have a lot of creatures with 1 power and they're available to block, Sidar Kondo is going to help you get through. It says creatures your opponents control without flying or reach can't block creatures with power 2 or less. So essentially it would make all your creatures unblockable except if your opponent's creatures have flying or reach. Then we have Champion of Lambholt, which says creatures with power less than Champion of Lambholt's power can't block creatures you control, and whenever another creature enters under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Champion of Lambholt. So all you need to do is cast Champion of Lambholt and then cast 1 more creature. It's going to get a +1/+1 counter, and then creatures with power less than 2 can't block creatures you control. All your creatures have 1 power, nothing with 1 power can block. Champion of Lambholt makes everything unblockable. And then our final option for when your opponents have low power blockers is kind of a cheeky one. Requisition Raid. It's removal, so it has spree. You can destroy an artifact, you can destroy an enchantment, or if you really need to, you can put a +1/+1 counter on each creature target player controls. So if someone is playing a token strategy and just pumping out like 10 1/1 tokens that are always available to block your creatures, you could just put a +1/+1 counter on all of their tokens, and now they're all going to have 2 power, and they can't block your creatures anymore. So it's just a funny use for this extra mode. I mean, Requisition Raid is playable, it's removal for artifacts and enchantments, but in the right situation, it can also help you get all your creatures through if they otherwise could be blocked by your opponent's creatures. I'm going to jump ahead here since we're already talking about dealing with opponent's small creatures. We have a few more options. Searing Light, destroy target attacking or blocking creature with power 2 or less. So if one of your opponents has a 1 power creature that keeps blocking you, Well, you can just destroy it for 1 mana. We have Last Breath. It's exile target creature with power 2 or less. So for 2 mana, deal with whatever small creature is getting in your way. Razorgrass Ambush. It's an MDFC. It's a land on the other side, so it basically doesn't even take up a slot in the deck. It deals 3 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. So again, if an opponent has a small creature that they're blocking you with, this could deal with it as long as it is low power and low toughness. And then we have a few other options for removal, and I chose removal that hits multiple players. I think that's just better in Commander usually. Grasp of Fate. When it enters, for each opponent, exile up to 1 target non-land permanent that player controls until Grasp of Fate leaves the battlefield. So this will just come down and deal with the 3 biggest problems on the battlefield, 1 from each player. We have Druid of Purification. When it enters, starting with you, each player may choose an artifact or enchantment you don't control. Destroy each permanent chosen this way, so you could just deal with the biggest issues, the most problematic artifacts and enchantments on the battlefield, gone. And again, both of these are on permanents, creature or enchantment, meaning you can get them when you find them with your card filtering. Next up, we have a one-sided board wipe. Destroy all creatures with power 3 or greater. That's basically never going to hit any of your creatures. It's almost always one-sided. And then it has an aftermath mode. Return all creature cards with power 2 or less from your graveyard to your hand. So if someone else sends a board wipe and you lose all your creatures, this will get all of your creatures back into your hand so you can rebuild. After that, Arachnogenesis. I just love this card and it fits so well in this deck. It's a fog, but you create X 1/2 green spider creature tokens with reach, where X is the number of creatures attacking you. So if someone wipes the board, they use a Cyclonic Rift or whatever, and now they're attacking you with 3, 4, 5, however many creatures, you can fog it and immediately have 3, 4, 5, 1/2 green spider creature tokens with reach that can then attack and start drawing you cards as soon as you cast Dalsum again. And then the last piece of interaction here is interesting. It's Noetic Scales, and it says during each player's upkeep, return to owner's hand each creature that player controls with power greater than the number of cards in their hand. Now, in theory, I really like this card, but I haven't actually cast it in a game with this deck yet. It just hasn't come up. But theoretically, it would continuously wipe the board of big creatures. If your opponent has 3 or 4 cards in hand, anything with power 5 or more is just going to get bounced on their upkeep. You're always going to have 7 cards in hand, and your creatures always have 1 power, so this is never going to hit any of your creatures. Now, if your opponents are drawing a bunch of cards, they have a lot of cards in hand, this probably isn't going to do much, but I just think it's a very interesting card for this deck, and I want to cast it. I need to play more games with this deck because I haven't drawn this yet. So there's really not a ton of interaction in the deck, but it's all very tailored to the deck's weaknesses. If your opponent has a small blocker that's preventing you from dealing damage, you have ways to deal with that. You can deal with multiple problem cards and multiple card types at the same time. Or you have these sort of one-sided board wipes that are never going to affect your creatures. And because this deck draws so many cards, 3 cards per turn off Dalsum, plus this really efficient filtering, you are going to be able to find that interaction when you need it. So I skipped this category. Let's just go back to it really quick. This is to cover one more of the deck's weaknesses. Protection spells. So Dalsum has hexproof as long as he's not attacking. So essentially the only thing that can hit him is a board wipe. If something says destroy all creatures, that's going to hit Dalsum. So we have a couple ways to give him indestructible. And I know that's not going to stop Cyclonic Rift, that's not going to stop Farewell, but you really don't have a lot of options in stopping Cyc Rift and Farewell. That's why they get played so much. But in case your opponent is running a Destroy All Creatures board wipe, we have 2 1-mana spells that can give target permanent hexproof and indestructible until end of turn, or give target creature indestructible until end of turn. But they're flexible in that you can pay extra mana if you have it. You can pay the Curaga tier or the Kicker Cost tier and give all of your creatures indestructible until end of turn. So if you only have 1 mana up, you can save Dalsum. If you have more mana up, you can save your entire board with these. Okay, I'm gonna goldfish a game real quick for you just to show you how it goes. I really wish I could play this deck unsleeved. It's a $35 deck, but unfortunately it does have a couple double-faced cards, so.
For the sake of saving me some time, though, we'll do the gold fishing sleeveless and just pretend we can't see the back of cards. All right, you want to cut that for me? Thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's see what we got here. That is keepable. We have lands, we have reach creatures. So let's play it. Turn 1, we'll draw a card, play a land. Don't have anything for 1 mana, so we'll pass. Turn 2, we'll draw a card, we'll play a land, and we'll play Tower Winder. For one thing, it's going to go get us a command tower, so we actually have a 3rd land, but it's also a 1/1 with reach and death touch. The death touchers are going to be the best blockers. They're great deterrents. You're going to be very safe behind a death toucher. Okay, so we'll grab that command tower. It goes to hand. Shuffle up. And go to the next turn. Turn 3, we'll untap, draw. Oof, okay, not a land, but that's okay. We'll play our 3rd land, and then we'll use 3 mana to cast Sylvanas Starfletcher, which we can tap for mana next turn. Turn 4, we're gonna untap, draw a land. No, that's fine because we have 4 mana. We'll pay 4 for Dalsim. And now we can attack with Tower Winder. It's a 1/1 with reach and death touch, and we're just gonna assume, for the sake of gold fishing, that your opponents don't have anything that can block this. And I know it's not always going to be that way, but when I'm gold fishing, what I'm really looking for is how fast can the deck execute its game plan in a vacuum when there's no resistance. Can it do its thing efficiently, effectively, reliably? But honestly, most of the time your stuff is just going to be unblockable somewhere. Like, pay attention to how often your opponents actually have 1-power creatures on board. Most of the time, 1, 2, 3 of the people at the table are just not going to have 1-power creatures. So we'll go to combat, we'll attack with Tower Winder. It'll untap because of Dalsim. It deals damage. We draw. Not a land. Okay, that's okay. Next turn, we're going to untap. We're going to draw. There's a land. So we've got 4 mana. And again, we're just going to do the same thing. We're going to go to combat. We're going to attack 2 different players for 1 damage each, and that's going to draw us 2 cards off of Dalsim. And at this point, we have options. We have what we need. We have a win condition in Huatli. We have a toughness boost in Castle. We have a board wipe if things get out of control. Actually, both of them. So we're already in a good position, but we just want to keep drawing cards right now. It's like turn, what, 4, 5? So let's spend some mana. That's 5 mana, right? And let's cast some spiders. Snare Spinner, Ribcage Spider. And a lot of times this is what your board is going to look like. You're going to have a lot of little spiders out. Your opponents aren't really going to want to spend their removal on them. Plus they're always up and they're good blockers. You got Death Touch, you got 3 toughness, 4 toughness. They're good blockers. You're not really going to get attacked that often. So you're pretty safe against attacks. You're pretty safe against removal. There's just not an easy way to interact with the deck. We'll go to our next turn. We'll untap, draw, play a land for turn. Oh, did I forget to discard down to hand size? Like, you have so many creatures in this deck that you can just, like, discard. Yeah, you're going to draw too many cards most of the time. So we're at a point now where we can start putting on some pressure. So we'll pay 3 mana for Huatli, and now all our creatures are going to deal combat damage based on their toughness. We'll go to attack with these essentially unblockable creatures. 3 damage, 4 damage, 3 damage, 1 damage. We're going to draw 3 cards off of that. So post-combat, we've got 3 mana available. We've got options. We could look for more cards. We could play more attackers, blockers. We could deal with some problem cards on the battlefield. But we're gold fishing, so let's just push here. We'll play another attacker. Next turn, we'll untap. We'll draw. We'll play a land for turn. We'll play a castle. And then we'll attack again. 3 damage, 5 damage, 6 damage, 5 damage, 5 damage, and draw 3 cards. And that's basically how it goes every game. The deck is super consistent. You're drawing a ton of cards. You always have access to what you need. You're pretty safe against attacks. You're pretty safe against spot removal. It has the potential to just surprise everyone and suddenly win with one big turn. Like, I had a game where it was kind of like this. I was just building out my board, slowly setting up. My opponents couldn't really interact with it. They couldn't get rid of my commander because he has hexproof. They were just fighting amongst themselves while I sat there pretty safe. And then I flipped the switch. I hit one of the toughness damage cards. I had one of the big pump spells, and then I just went from dealing 1 damage at a time to everyone to suddenly attacking the table for like 70 damage in 1 turn. So for half the cost of a collector booster, you too can play Spider-Man in Magic the Gathering. If you want to see more of my budget decks, check them out right here on screen, and let me know what you think of this one. Leave a comment if you're planning on building it, and I don't know, happy spider season, I guess.